The first question I ask myself when I need or want to take a drive is quite simple. Can I take the MGB? And the answer is often yes, unless I need to carry a ton of stuff or it's actually just tipping it down. Why? Well, the MGB is a hoot to drive and you feel connected to the road in a way that a modern car never does. Hello, I'm Manik Dubash and I own this 1968 British Racing Green MGB Roadster. I bought it back in 2012 as an adjunct to my main car at the time, which was a Porsche 911. Sadly, I've sold it now. But all too often, that wasn't the car I chose to drive. A lot of the problem was down to geography. A 911 loves to stretch its legs on traffic-free fast A roads or twisty back roads, but where do you find those in clogged up England? In the south where I live, the opportunities to really enjoy all that power and superb handling appear only in small bursts, if at all. So the car all too often sat in the garage, unless it was headed for somewhere lovely like Scotland or France. The MGB, on the other hand, for all its ubiquity, is a hoot to drive. You can drive it as fast as it wants to go and still not break the speed limit, officer. So, what made me actually buy one? I enjoyed working on my Mini back in the 70s, but new cars have become so complex, they're difficult, if not impossible, to work on. So I wanted a car that was simple, that wouldn't break the bank, and for which spares would be plentiful. Anything for an easy life. And an MGB ticks all those boxes. So let me tell you something about the car itself. I looked at quite a few before buying, but to me it looks best in BRG, British Racing Green. Though I'll admit it looks pretty good in red, yellow, orange, white and quite a few other colours too. I had a hankering for one ever since I first saw one in the 1960s, and before British Leyland went and ruined it by bolting hideous black rubber bumpers on the front of it. I wanted one that was fairly early then, before it became too complex and before British Leyland had added its branding. So when I finally bought one after months of looking, I thought I had a good one. How wrong I was. But more about that in a minute. Let me take you over the car first. This one's over 50 years old now, but everything works. My first priority was to sort out the electrics, which, contrary to what some people think, are pretty simple, especially on the early cars. So I fixed the things that didn't work, like the windscreen wipers, which blew fuses every time you turned them on. And I made subtle upgrades, such as adding relays to circuits like the headlamps and the heater, both of which now work much better than they did before, and this avoids passing heavy currents through ancient switches. The car's got a more modern fuse box now too, so if a fuse were to blow, I can get a replacement anywhere. What else? Well, the cooling system's been flushed through and is now more efficient, complete with an electric fan. The heater works, it's got new dampers, springs, brakes, shiny new wire wheels, and tyres, and a new central console, which I designed and built so I could add more gauges and switches, because who doesn't need more of those? I haven't touched the engine yet because I've no idea what's in there. The car didn't come with much documentation or history, but it's been 100% reliable so far. Maybe I'll get around to upgrading that pretty soon. But a couple of years after I bought it, and now we get to the expensive bit, I ended up spending far more than the car was worth repairing corrosion. You know, the kind of rust that you don't find even after crawling around under the car with a screwdriver before you buy it, which is what I did. But then rust emerges like a snake from its hole and you realise what's been hiding under that shiny exterior. Rust, lots of rust. I still remember clearly the moment when the MOT tester ducked out from under the car and pointed out a rusty hole near the rear suspension. "It's a fail," he said, pointing at the hole. My heart sank as I pondered the cost of fixing it. It was so corroded that I employed the services of Peter Flynn, an MGB restoration expert, to weld it all back together again. Floor, sills, wings, all new metal now, and Peter did all that hard work, including a perfect paint job, while I restored the interior and bolted the exterior bits on, like the bumpers. At first I wondered if it was all worth it, and the sensible half of me said, of course not. But after a lot of agonising, I pressed the go button and now it's done. I don't regret it for an instant. So while restoring the car wasn't what you'd call a sensible decision, There's not much of it now that I haven't worked on one way or another. But it's never quite finished. Many a happy afternoon has been spent in the workshop, spanners in hand, tinkering and tweaking, getting things just right. It's in a permanent state of rolling maintenance, and hours can pass happily as I check valve clearances and fluid levels, change the oil, grease the suspension, you name it. But the car is no garage queen. It goes down to the south of France most years, and whether pootling along French country roads or blasting down the A roads, it's yet to blot its copybook by breaking down. And the driving experience, with the roof off, is huge fun. The wind in your hair, the car keeps you alert, since it feels connected directly to the road underneath you, and you know what's going on under the wheels. You can hear, feel, smell and see what's going on, and the car turns heads as we rumble through those French villages. So the MGB is not just a car, it's a hobby. So I'm always thinking of things to do. I've not had much other than regular maintenance to do over the last couple of years, so I'm now considering upgrades. For example, the rear suspension is pretty ancient, and it bumps and skips over bumps in corners, and it could probably handle a bit more power. So those are the areas that I'm looking at. So in summary, why do I love my MGB? Well, it's great to work on, it's gorgeous to drive, and I know it intimately. I know how it feels, I know how it smells even, and what's more, it's got bags of character. What's not to like?